All right, everybody, ready for a deep dive? This one's a little different.
Oh,
Yeah, we're jumping into this motivational video, like almost a sermon, really. It's
yeah.
all about what happens when you mess with a chosen one.
Oh, interesting.
And before anyone starts digging out their tinfoil hats,
Right.
this isn't about, conspiracy theories or anything like that. Remember, we're here for the interesting ideas.
Absolutely.
And this video, well, it's got some wild claims.
I bet.
We're talking divine protection, spiritual battles, the works.
No.
It's a lot.
So where do we even start with something like this?
Well, what's fascinating is how it takes these big, like almost ancient ideas
Right.
and packages them in this structure that feels surprisingly modern.
Okay.
It's a classic 7 things you need to know format.
So they took, like, the oldest stories in the book
Exactly.
and gave them a clickbait makeover.
It's kind of brilliant, actually.
Right.
So they lay out these 7 consequences for anyone who dares to cross these divinely favored folks, right?
Okay.
But we should be clear here, right? We're not here to tell anyone what to believe.
Of course not.
We're dissecting this thing for the juicy stuff.
The psychology behind it, the history.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, a little reflection on our own lives, Have you ever, felt like you stumbled into a real-life chosen one story?
It's funny you should say that.
Because we're going to be diving into that as we unpack this video.
I'm intrigued.
And I think our listeners will be too.
Because even though this video presents itself within a specific, belief system, the concepts, the protection, the resilience, even this idea of cosmic justice, these resonate across cultures and throughout history.
100%. All right, so thing number 1, right out of the gate, is divine protection.
Okay, bold start.
Oh, they don't hold back. The message is basically mess with a chosen one, and you're not just facing them, you're facing a force way bigger than yourself.
We're talking like God stepping in as their personal bodyguard.
That's it. And they illustrate this with the classic tale of Daniel in the lion's den.
Ah, classic.
Right. I bet a lot of people listening know this one, but for those who need a refresher, Daniel, man of deep faith, gets tossed to the lions by his enemies.
Not a great situation to be in.
No, not at all. Pretty grim, right?
Yeah.
But he walks out, completely unscathed. All thanks to, you guessed it, divine protection.
It's not even just resilience at that point, right?
Yeah.
It's like their faith itself becomes the shield. And I think that's a really powerful idea.
For sure. But what I find even more interesting is how this video connects these ancient stories, like Daniel, to our modern experiences.
Oh, I see.
Right? So they go on about those moments when you narrowly avoid disaster or when help appears out of thin air.
Right, right.
The video claims these aren't just lucky breaks,
Of course not.
but signs of divine intervention, especially if you're, tangled up with one of these chosen ones.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you think twice about those close call stories,
Absolutely. It's like, is it just coincidence or is there something more at play here?
Right, because instead of, wow, that was lucky, it's, wow, someone up there must be looking out for them and maybe for me by association.
It's a powerful feeling. And it ties into something called apophenia.
What now?
Apophenia.
Yeah.
It's our tendency to find patterns, to connect dots, even when those connections might not actually exist.
So we're hardwired to find meaning even in randomness?
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
And this video is basically providing a pre-made narrative for those patterns, one that resonates with our desire for meaning, for order in a world that can feel very chaotic.
Makes sense. I mean, who hasn't felt that little shiver down their spine when something incredibly fortunate or maybe unfortunate, depending which side you're on, happens?
Exactly. And that, my friend, leads us to thing number 2, which takes a bit of a darker turn. Spiritual warfare.
Ooh, buckle up, everybody, because things are about to get intense.
This is where the video claims things get really real. We're talking invisible battles for souls.
And guess who's caught in the crossfire?
Let me guess. Anyone who messes with the chosen one.
Bingo. You got it.
Figures.
This is where the source really leans into this concept of good versus evil, like playing out on a cosmic scale.
I6.
Big time. And they suggest that chosen ones, because of their supposed connection to the divine, become prime targets for negative forces, for temptations meant to, derail them from their path.
So any little misstep, any obstacle.
Could be a sign.
Exactly.
And they even provide a handy list of what these attacks might look like. Sudden doubts, obstacles appearing out of nowhere, even just feeling tempted to stray from your goals. If you miss a deadline, that's not just bad planning, that's a spiritual attack. Right. It's a lot to process. Basically, if you're feeling stuck or sabotaged, it might not even be you, right? It could be these unseen forces gunning for whoever you might have crossed.
I mean, talk about an excuse for those times. You just can't get your act together.
Right, like, sorry I missed that deadline, boss. Must be those spiritual ninjas again.
Oh man, good luck explaining that one in the real world.
Seriously. But I can see how this idea, this spiritual attack thing, it resonates, you know?
It does. It's a way to explain those setbacks,
Yeah.
to kind of externalize blame.
And it gives you something to fight against.
Right, a sense of agency when you're facing what feels like, I don't know, just random chaos.
Right, totally. Because if it's a cosmic battle, then at least there's a reason for the struggle. You're not just failing, you're fighting off invisible ninjas. It's almost empowering in a way.
I can see that. But let's be real for a second.
Okay, getting serious.
Sometimes a missed deadline is just, well, a missed deadline.
Sometimes you just hit snooze one too many times, right? We can't everything on spiritual warfare, can we?
They can't. And I think this is where, discernment comes in.
Being able to tell the difference.
Exactly. The video, it offers this framework for challenges, but it's important to consider other factors too, right? Practical stuff.
Yeah, like just forgetting to set an alarm.
Or psychological stuff, even just plain old bad luck.
Sometimes the universe just wants to see you sweat, am I right? All right, ready for thing number 3.
Hit me with it.
This one's all about unshakable faith. And honestly, gotta hand it to the source. They really sell this idea, the power of unwavering belief.
And they do it through, well, they use the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Okay, gotta admit, had to look those names up.
It's a classic, though. Talk about an epic showdown. These 3 guys, they refuse to bow down to a golden statue, even with a fiery furnace staring them in the face.
Talk about a tough crowd.
Right. Their faith is tested to the absolute limit.
So what happens? Do they cave?
Spoiler alert, they walk out of that furnace completely unharmed.
Whoa, that's some serious fire resistance.
Right. Now, whether you take that literally or metaphorically, you can't deny the power of that kind of conviction.
It makes you think about all those figures throughout history who faced impossible odds, all because of what they believed.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is that, resilience research backs this up. Yeah.
Oh, really? So it's not just a story. There's actual science behind it.
It seems like it. The belief in something bigger than yourself, whether it's religious faith, a cause, a set of values even, it's been linked to better coping mechanisms.
So when things get tough, that belief gives you something to hold on to.
It's about tapping into that inner reservoir of strength, that belief that even when things are tough, you keep going.
Love that. Okay, so we've talked about protection, we've talked about battles, but now, have you ever noticed how some people, they just seem to attract good fortune, like things just work out for them?
Oh yeah, we all know that person.
Right. Well, buckle up, because thing number 4 dives headfirst into that favor and blessings.
Okay, let me guess. This is where aligning yourself with the chosen one comes in handy.
You know it. The source claims that by, well, let's just say some of that good karma might rub off on you, if you're lucky.
Interesting. So how do they back that up?
Well, they use the story of Joseph.
Ah, another biblical heavyweight.
This guy goes from 0 to hero. And I mean 0. Sold into slavery by his own brothers.
Brutal.
Yeah, rough family, right. But he ends up as the 2nd most powerful dude in Egypt, advising the pharaoh himself.
Talk about a glow up. That's some next level favor.
Right. But here's the thing that gets me. Do good things always happen to good people? And if so, what about everyone else?
That's a big question. Because the idea of a just world, where good deeds are always rewarded, it's comforting, sure.
Definitely.
But the reality, well, it's a little more complicated.
That's putting it mildly.
We see people facing incredible hardships every day, and it's not always clear why.
Life can be pretty random like that. All right, on to thing number 5. And this one, I gotta say, this one got me thinking, even if you're not, super religious or anything.
What is it?
It's about resilience and strength. The idea is chosen ones, by their very nature, they're going to face trials.
Makes sense.
It's like a cosmic boot camp. But those challenges, they don't break them, they make them stronger.
Like that saying, what doesn't kill you?
It makes you stronger. Exactly. And I know the video frames it in this whole divine purpose thing, but there's some truth to it, right?
There is. Psychologically speaking, there's this concept of post-traumatic growth. It's the idea that even after really tough experiences, we can find meaning, growth, even positive transformation.
We've all been through stuff. We've all had moments where we've had to really dig deep.
And it's a question of What did those experiences make you? Did they break you down, or did they, like, forge you into something stronger?
It's all about perspective, isn't it? Like, instead of asking why me, it's more like, what can I learn from this?
Exactly. Find the opportunity in the struggle, the resilience that's forged in the fire.
So powerful. Okay, everyone listening, get ready for some serious Old Testament vibes, because thing number 6 is all about divine justice.
Ooh, this should be good.
And let me tell you, the gloves are off on this one.
Weigh it on me.
We're talking some serious consequences for crossing a chosen one.
Like worse than spiritual ninjas.
Way worse. This is about facing the wrath of, well, a higher power.
Okay, that's a whole different ballgame.
Right, and to illustrate this, they use the story of Haman and Mordecai.
Now, those names I do recognize. Isn't that the story with, like, the gallows and...
Oh yeah, we're talking some dramatic irony in this one. Haman, this power-hungry dude, he's scheming to take out Mordecai, a man of faith. And get this, he even builds the gallows himself.
It is like he's asking for it.
Right. Talk about adding insult to injury. But plot twist, Haman's plan backfires. Big time.
Let me guess. He ends up getting strung up on his own gallows.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Talk about karma coming back to bite you, right?
It's brutal. But it speaks to that very human desire for justice, that belief that what goes around comes around.
Even if it doesn't always happen as quickly as we'd like.
Exactly. This whole idea of divine retribution, a higher power righting the wrongs, it's been a cornerstone of belief systems for centuries.
It's comforting to think that in the end, things will balance out.
It offers comfort, definitely. This sense that there's a force for good out there and that ultimately it will prevail.
Okay, so we've covered protection, battles, blessings, resilience, even some cosmic justice. That's a lot. But the video, it doesn't end on a "you've been warned" note, you know.
Oh. So what's the final word?
Thing number 7 takes a more, let's just say, aspirational turn.
How so?
It focuses on the impact these chosen ones have on others. It's like they're saying, okay, sure, messing with a chosen one might be bad for your karma, but have you considered all the good they do in the world?
That's a good point. Because so far, we've mostly been looking at this from the perspective of what happens to you if you cross a chosen one. But what about the flip side?
Right, like what's their impact on the world around them?
Exactly. And for this one, they use the story of Paul and Silas.
Okay, yeah, those names ring a bell. They were early Christians, super devoted to spreading their beliefs. And you know what? They ended up in prison for it.
Talk about dedication.
No kidding. And not just a slap on the wrist either. We're talking beaten, chained up, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, that's intense.
Wow.
So what did they do?
Here's the thing. Even in that situation, they didn't waver. They sang hymns, praised their God. It's like their faith gave them this incredible strength, even in the darkest moment.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
And I bet that's where this whole impact thing comes in, right? Their example, even in prison, it must have been pretty inspiring.
You got it. Because their jailer, this guy who's seen it all, right, witnessing their faith, their resilience, he's completely blown away.
He must have been like, okay, there's something real going on here.
Exactly. And he converts to Christianity. And not just him, his entire family too.
Wow. Talk about a chain reaction.
Right. And it makes you think about the power of just living your truth, especially when things get tough. Like Paul and Silas, they could have easily given up, but instead, their faith, it became this beacon.
They inspired others because they were so authentic, so true to themselves, even when it was hard.
It's like their inner strength. It was contagious. And honestly, that's something that resonates even outside of religion, don't you think?
Totally. Think about like Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr., their unwavering commitment to their beliefs, it sparked movements.
It changed the world.
Exactly. Because they were willing to stand up for what they believed in, no matter what.
So inspiring. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've gone from divine protection and spiritual warfare to blessings, resilience, justice, and now this idea of impact. What a journey.
It really has been. But if we had to sum it all up, what would you say the takeaway is for our listeners? Especially those who might be, a little skeptical of some of the more, let's say, supernatural claims in this video.
I think it boils down to the power of belief itself. Whether you believe in a higher power, dedicate yourself to a cause, or just have a strong moral code, that belief, it shapes you. It impacts how you see the world, how you interact with others, everything. And that's a powerful thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because it's true. These belief systems, they've been around for centuries. And it's because they offer something, They give people meaning, a sense of belonging, a way to make sense of the world, especially the parts that can be confusing or scary.
Totally. They give us a framework for understanding things, for navigating challenges, for finding our place in all the chaos. And whether or not you agree with every single claim in that video, you can't deny the impact that belief has on our lives.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing that power, but also, being mindful of how those beliefs shape us
Hmm.
because they influence how we treat others, the choices we make. It's a big responsibility.
Absolutely. It's like this hidden force that's always there, shaping our reality in ways we might not even realize. And hey, maybe by understanding it better, by being more aware of it, we can learn to harness that power for good.
Now, there's a thought to leave our listeners with. What do you think?
I love it. So, to everyone listening, we want to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where you felt like you encountered a real life chosen one? Or maybe you tapped into your own unshakable belief to overcome a challenge? Hit us up on social media, send us an email. We're dying to hear your stories. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep diving deep.